my name is Fahia and I'm going to be talking about my future management plan. So first things first, physical environment. In terms of desks and chairs, since it is a science classroom, I would prefer to have the students sitting in groups facing each other. So having groups of four, right? Instead of having everyone look forward, I think it would be helpful because there's a lot of things you have to do in terms of laboratories and group work. I would not have a teacher's desk. I would have an area designated for my laptop just to take attendance and do administrative things, but I wouldn't necessarily have a teacher's desk. I feel like it puts a barrier between you and your students, and it kind of encourages me to walk around and be more active as well. In terms of supplies, students would be able to have boxes for each group. I think this is pretty effective. You would either leave the boxes at the tables, where they would have supplies like colored markers, pencils, or maybe like rulers and things like that. You would have them supplies at the tables. And then in terms of the walls, I would have actually a word wall, since we do have a lot of science vocab. I would also have a designated area for student work. It would be like kind of like a bulletin board, kind of. I don't want to have it scattered all over the room. I think it's important to have a clean and pretty clear room, but I would also have a bulletin board, right? And then maybe some inspiring messages, or maybe like maybe some famous scientist pictures in the back of the classroom. I think this has to do with belonging and how we talked about how students need to feel like they belong in the school environment, in the classroom environment, and having their student work displayed and having that space for themselves, I think is helpful in fostering that. When it comes to opening and closing routines, I would prefer to have it be pretty organized like it is in my current teaching placement. Students come in, they start writing the objective in their notebooks. It's on a PowerPoint slide up on the board. They come in, the teacher grades them, greets them at the door, gives them a high five, they sit down, start copying, right? I would come around and start stamping their work. I wouldn't necessarily do it myself. I would have a student helper do it. Each day it would be a different student, so that, to kind of promote equity, so every student has a chance to participate in the classroom. And then I would start off class with announcements, grades, whatever assignments I need to like remind them about, and then go from there. And then in terms of closing, I would have first off routines for cleaning up, putting textbooks away, laptops away, kind of doing it by groups or by sections, and then have a closing activity. It can be something as small as like a classroom discussion is what I typically do in my current placement, or I could have exit slips, or I could just give them reminders at the end of class. And I do this pretty much every day, like, hey, just to remind you, this is due at the end of like tomorrow, or hey, don't forget that this event is happening. And then I might do some games too. So currently I do mystery person, which is kind of like an icebreaker, and it's kind of like an incentive now, because students will have that to look forward to at the end of class if we do what we're supposed to be doing and we have time. So rules, behavior, and expectations. My rules are pretty simple. My expectations are be prepared, be responsible, and be respectful. I feel like these are pretty simple, but at the beginning of the semester, I would have students kind of sketch out, hey, what does it look like that you're prepared for school? What does it look like if you're responsible? What does it mean to be respectful? Have the students come up with what each of those expectations mean, but I wouldn't necessarily change them. I would have them kind of work in groups at the beginning of the school year or the semester and kind of work this out, because I think it's important to get student input. Classroom community, this part is really important to me. I would start doing restorative activities to kind of promote a sense of well-being and kind of a community. I would do icebreakers at the beginning of the school year or the semester, just to get kids to get to know each other, learn their names. I might even do mystery person, have students write facts about themselves and try to guess. That would probably be later on in the semester or school year, when they have gotten to know each other a little better. All of this would be giving like a sense of belongingness, like we talked about in class, right? Belongingness, having students feel like they belong to a positive community in the classroom. I would be promoting equity, through participation. All students would be able to participate, kind of doing random name calls, or like I said, with the objectives, having different students stamp every day. Everyone gets a chance to do those things. And then collaboration poster at the beginning of the school year, I would have them kind of talk about, hey, what does it look like? What does collaboration look like with your groups or with your partners? right? I would have students start to think about that and come up with their own expectations of what that means. And through all of this, I would also be fostering growth mindset, like we talked about in class. That learning really is not fixed; it's growing. I would kind of establish this early on in the school year and continue to work on students with that. Kind of maybe do lectures or mini lessons about this, and have them do activities where they try to think of a sense of like an idea, like, oh, this is a way that you are doing fixed mindset and versus growth mindset and things like that. And then lastly, the consequences. My first consequence would be like a verbal warning, telling a student, hey, this is your verbal warning. Next, you would remove them from the situation. So I would either take them to the side and talk to them. If that doesn't work out, I would move their seats. Next step would be a parent phone call home. After that, it's a referral to the office. And this is something that I've been doing in my current placement. It's been working pretty effectively. Somewhere along those lines, I would say after number 2 is when I would consider lowering citizenship grade and letting them know, hey, this is your final. I would give them a final warning in between numbers 2 and 3 before the parent phone call home. Trying to work it out with students generally works as long as they know what the expectations are as well as the consequences.